Hey you guys, and welcome to the syllabus video. This is the part of the course where I talk about what the requirements are for the course and all the associated stuff. This is essentially all the stuff we would do the first week or so covering the syllabus. A quick note here about how these videos are arranged and lined up. It's not the same as a regular class. A regular class, whenever I video, or whenever I lecture for a regular class, what I usually do is stop, take time for questions, engineer little feedback mechanisms and stuff for you guys. But because this is a video, I'm just going to head through it straight away, meaning I'm just going to launch through the material. And it's designed with the understanding that you can rewind and pause and go back and look at what I said. And so I'll try to cover things straightforwardly one time and then continue forward. I will not lollygag. I understand that you have a lot of commitments in your life outside of this one online course. And so I'll try to make the lectures as short as possible, but also as dense as possible. In other words, I'll try to include all the stuff that I need to and all the stuff that I can. Without making it, a 4-hour video. So let's start at the beginning. This is the very beginning of your syllabus. It indicates we're in Philosophy 11, section number 10138. This is winter of 2019. We've just entered the year of 2019. The course title, it's actually an introduction to critical thinking, but I have listed the title here, Think That Through. And it captures kind of the ideas which surround this course, which is trying to cultivate the ways in which we think. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but the idea is we want to be methodical and as rational as possible in the way that we think. And as a result, this course isn't really about a subject in the same way that other courses are. So you take a course on biology, you might take a course on molecular biology or something like that. With critical thinking, we're not going to be studying philosophy. We're going to be studying the ways that we tend to think about things, and most particularly the mistakes that our brains make all the time. In fact, our brains tend to be, I don't want to say they're designed to make mistakes, but they've been selected because they make certain mistakes that aren't too bad. Okay, don't worry about all that. Okay, Philosophy 11. This course is entirely online. That's the first thing you should know. We will never meet in person. This course will take place entirely online. You can message me if you're having difficulty with material. You can call me. We can talk on the phone. I've done that in the past, certainly. But by and large, there is no requirement that you attend class or go to the LAC campus or go to the PCC campus. There is no requirement for that. Also, I will not be providing office hours as a result. Again, I'm available to you guys. You can message me through Canvas. You guys can arrange to do a phone call. I'm available to you guys, but we won't be physically meeting in person. I know some of you are really bummed about it. Okay, the governing quote for this class comes to us from Jose Vasconcelos, a Mexican philosopher. And I have the text in Spanish on the left for those of you who speak Spanish or read it. I do not. Not very well anyway, and I'm very grateful to Professor Garcia for helping me with this translation. Only books will lift this country out of ignorant cruelty. This quote is a great example of a theme in the course, and the idea is that we can, through thinking about how we think, correct the mistakes that we make. And as a result, then we won't be driven by our base passions and our prejudices, but instead we'll be driven by reason, what is always and everywhere true. Something like that, right? The idea is you don't just want to be right, you want to know what's true. And there's a huge difference. Okay, your grade. How is this course going to go? 25% of your grade comes at the very end at your presentation. And that's where you pick a subject and then you present on it to me. And I give you an outline that you follow when you present. But typically these are stories about ghosts or Bigfoot or a UFO, any kind of paranormal topic people usually pick Sometimes people pick conspiracy theories and they give presentations on that. Now, when I say give a presentation, you are just submitting your PowerPoint online. In other words, you don't have to talk, but you will submit what you've done online and I will review it that way. So you're not going to be going to campus for that. A lot of people ask. Now you know, we got that out of the way. Next thing, 25% of your grade is going to be based on the paper. The paper for this course is going to be Roswell, and is a really fun module. What happens for that section of the course, you will have 2 class discussions, and then you will write the paper. And what you do is the discussions that you have with your classmates end up influencing your paper. I know, at least I've taken online courses where the discussion is just mind-numbingly useless. You tend to just try to hit the word count and be done. And it's really unproductive and it's really pointless, but it's something that everybody seems to trudge through and do. In this course, the discussions that you have are going to help you write the paper. And so they will be important. And you will be interacting with your classmates on this stuff. So the discussion sections are not numerous. There are a couple of them, but you'll need to do them because they'll impact the grade for the paper. Okay, next up, we have quizzes. This is 50% of the course grade. Quizzes are typically pretty straightforward. They are almost entirely multiple choice. There are a couple of exceptions. And the point of the quizzes is to determine whether or not you have understood the material sufficiently to conform to the requirements that the state of California has laid out for satisfactory progress and grade award in this course. So the way to think about quizzes is they're not terrible, they're not super difficult, provided you study. I try to break them into little subjects, I try to make them fun and interesting. I give you the notes, and so the notes that were used to make the lecture, you can actually use in the quiz. If at any point you take a quiz, maybe you bombed the quiz, right? Or maybe you felt like you did great, but there's something wrong with the quiz, or you just didn't do well on the quiz, you can message me, and I will get back to you. I've had students make colorable arguments about questions and their answers, and I've awarded credit. That's very understandable. Also, if you just have a concern about something, let me know. I'm here for you. Let's see. So those are the general basics of the course in terms of grades. The one thing, well, we won't chat too much yet about me, but that should break it all down in terms of quizzes. So, yeah. All right. Next up, we have a quote from Mary Wollstonecraft. "The being cannot be termed rational or virtuous who obeys any authority but that of reason." This is a great quote, right? And it helps to provide us with a little bit of context, right? What are we going to be doing in this course? Well, people are different and they're made up of different things. And one rule that comes way back in civilization is this idea of putting reason in charge. In other words, don't just have an opinion and to heck with the facts, but actually making the decision to consciously educate yourself about something and try to use reason to come to a conclusion rather than just believing something because somebody has always taught us that, or believing something because it's emotionally more convenient for us, right? This is the goal of the course. Student learning outcomes. Now I'm going to read these to you, but I'm going to tell you what, they're going to be in Greek. They're not going to make much sense at all. Why? Because we haven't covered this stuff yet, right? So it's not clear what's going on. We're going to be analyzing arguments and components of arguments. That's the first thing we'll do. Well, it's not the first thing we'll do. It's our first student learning outcome. Secondly, we'll distinguish between examples of inductive arguments and deductive arguments. And third, we'll evaluate inductive arguments for strength, cogency, and or the presence of fallacies in speech or text. Okay, that's what they all say. What do they mean? Analyze arguments and components of arguments. The idea here is that we want you to start thinking in terms of a conclusion and reasons you give for that conclusion. This is the opposite of how you've probably experienced a lot of culture, which is just sound bites, right? People love sound bites, short, sweet, easy to remember, but that's not what reason is, and that's not what thinking is. That's just repetition. We want you to think about the connection between ideas, between statements, and whether or not those connections are necessary, or what would also have to be true for certain connections to be made. So we're going to start thinking in different ways in this class. Next, we're going to talk about different kinds of arguments. Some arguments are built in a certain way that if the premises line up properly with the conclusion, then these arguments have a special trait. It's called validity. In other words, there are better ways to think than others. We have a tendency to be super tolerant in this society to some extent, and that's great. But one thing that we need to be aware of is that we have to understand that there's a right way to reason, right? And there's a wrong way to reason. If you reason the right way, you can win in court. If you reason the wrong way, you lose. And so when we talk about induction, we're talking about a kind of reasoning that the premises support the conclusion, but they don't really guarantee it. And this is different from deduction, where the premises, the reasons that you give for something, actually guarantee the conclusion. Now, none of that makes sense right now. I told you none of it would. This is just a preview, right? We'll get into that a little more intensely when we talk about logic. Lastly, we'll talk about various features of inductive arguments and fallacies. Fallacies are ways of thinking that are wrong, but we do them so frequently we've given them names. So, for example, after something, therefore because of something is a great example. I once had a friend, when she was 19, she had a cold. As a result of this cold, she took cod liver oil. She got better within the week, and now she's utterly convinced that the cod liver oil cured her cold. Now, you might ask, gosh, what would have happened if you hadn't taken it? Right? That might mean, hey, maybe she would have gotten better anyway. Just because something happens after something doesn't mean it happens because of it. Right? Now, this is just one example of a fallacy. There are lots of other ones, and we'll talk about them. But just so that you know, some people, instead of using logic, they would appeal to fear. Right? So they might say, oh, put this person behind bars because they're terrible, and you're next. Well, look, jurors are not really the next person in line to be victimized by someone who's on trial, but it sounds really good, and it might change your mind. It might force a conclusion into you. So what we'll do in this class is point out all of these appeals that people make. People make appeals to fear, they make appeals to prejudice, they make appeals to anger, and these are bad ways to think. And the point of this class is to get you out of that mode of thinking. All right, Roswell, a really fun module where we cover a famous American story about aliens landing in the desert. Now, why in the heck do we do this? Well, look, if you're reasoning properly about the most extraordinary cases that exist, then you're going to be reasoning properly about other areas of your life. And so if we can get Roswell down, then we can handle other cases, and you'll see that there's a sort of transference of the practical skills of learning and thinking, right? Okay, next up, second sight. We'll talk a little bit about ESP and psychics in this course, and whether or not there's any evidence for that kind of thing and what kind of claim that would be. Perception, we're going to talk about how your mind perceives things. This is important, of course, because the way that you perceive is closely related to the way that you think. Perception and cognition are intimately linked. We'll talk about memories. They're not as good as you think in this class. And the reason why this is important is because of the length of time that transpires between some extraordinary happenings and then people's depictions or accounts of those happenings. And the longer that time goes on, the less likely the stories being told are true. All right, and then most straightforwardly, control your mind or someone else will. Look, in this class, I'm not here to get you guys to think any one particular way about anything. I have students who believe in ghosts and get an A, and I have students who don't believe in ghosts and get an A. It's true across the board. I'm not here to get you to accept a certain conclusion, whether that's political or economic, right? I want you to think the way that you think. That's the most important thing. So I don't care what you think, but I care how you think, right? The idea is that if you're not careful, people can fool you. And in fact, if you're not careful, you'll fool yourself. I know you don't believe me. I know it sounds like a strange thing to say, but it's just true. So I'll mention this again a little bit later on, but I want you guys, when you're working in this course, to feel free to express your views and not be concerned that you'll be counted down as a result. I don't grade you on your opinions about political stuff or the supernatural. I'm pretty biased. Professor Vitt is socially pretty liberal, but I went to a very, very, very conservative law school, and that was excellent for me because I have a lot of friends who are conservatives, and I can really and truly appreciate that perspective without having to demonize people, right? It's just a genuine difference in opinion, but that's not, that's where it ends, right? The point is that everybody's going to have different ideas, and the point of this course, and we've had courses where it's not like this, the point of this course is for you to develop yourself, not for you to try to regurgitate what you think I want you to say. The world does not need another Professor Vitt. The world needs you, and it needs your ideas. So I'm really comfortable with you guys developing in your own way. That's my goal. So never feel like you need to say something because you think I would appreciate it politically or otherwise, right? Okay, here we go. Another quote from Aristotle. It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. By the way, that might be a dubious attribution. He might not have said that. The idea is, so why do I put it in the syllabus? The idea is I want you to think about positions on the basis of the evidence that tends to make them true or show them true or false, rather than what the conclusion is. Now, this is kind of the opposite of the way that our mind actually works. Our mind makes up its mind first, and then we go back and try to invent reasons for it. We want to try and do the opposite. We want to look at the reasons for things and then make up our minds. Okay, course catalog description. I'm going to read this baby out loud, but again, some of it is going to be Greek because we haven't taken the course yet. This class focuses on the improvement of practical reasoning skills. Students will be required to improve their reasoning skills and will learn to detect and avoid common argument fallacies. Students will develop the knowledge and habits needed to make decisions between conflicting ideas and beliefs. Applications are made to both contemporary and perennial issues, such as current political events, the news media, science versus pseudoscience, and capital punishment. Okay. Required text and materials. This is super important. Our textbook for this course is free, gratis. You don't have to pay anything for it. That's pretty awesome, because for years I had to teach this course, and I felt like the material that students needed was relatively public, and it's nice to be able to just say, you don't have to buy a textbook. I know for a lot of students that's a ton of money. It was for me, and I'm grateful to be able to offer this. This is the result of Long Beach City College as a district coming together and making resources available for faculty who wanted to do this. And so I was given a grant by Long Beach City College to incorporate this text and its material into our critical thinking course. And so because of that, we can do this. Now, one thing, I give you notes for every single course, so what will ultimately happen is you probably won't spend a lot of time looking at that book, but you'll spend a lot more time looking at my notes and listening to the lectures. So just be forewarned. That's the textbook. Now get ready to focus and be more efficient with your time, and you don't have to just start reading the book, right? I encourage you to look through my notes as it comes up. Okay, course requirements. So we already went through this stuff. Grading policy. These are just LBCC stuff, right? You get an A, you get between 100 and 90. There are no pluses or minuses. In a way, that makes my job a lot easier. In another way, it makes it a lot harder. I do my best to work with folks who are on the line between things. And I guess I just want to bring this up too at this point. If you're still listening, bless you, thank you. I am not infallible. I will make mistakes on things all the time. I just made a mistake. Instead of saying mistakes, I said mistake. And so I'm, I feel terrible when it happens and it affects you guys. And so if for instance, in the schedule, I want to move something up or something down here, I will do so, but in a way that benefits you guys. So if I ever change the course, it'll never be against you, it'll be for you. You'll have more time to do something instead of less. But also, I make mistakes. I'm just not a perfect person. And as a result, you know, when someone makes a mistake, if they turn something in late, or hey, you know what? I'll listen. I'll hear it all the way down the line, because that happens to me too. You know, I forget something, or I'm super busy. So I guess the one thing I want to mention at this point in the lecture, in the video, is, look, message me. You know, if something goes wrong, I can help, right? I can help on a quiz, but if I never hear about it, then I cannot help. So never feel like you're bothering me. I'm here to help and help you through this process of learning. And I try to see it as something collaborative. You know, you and I are working together on this, rather than I'm laying out the law, right? Because I'll make mistakes in lecture and in assigning things. And, you know, I apologize in advance, but I extend you the same courtesy, right? You know, people will make mistakes on things. Okay, next up, primary course contact for this course is going to be in Canvas. This is because the email from the school ain't always so good. In fact, sometimes it's a little rough. Canvas is great because it tells me your section already. I don't need to worry about, oh, what section was this in, or how does this go? So please message me in Canvas. That's the best way to get those messages to me. Also, now you can contact me on social media, right? I have an Instagram account, and I'm also on Twitter. Instagram account is mostly filled with stuff from like the Philosophy Club, or just stuff that I've posted. And the Twitter account is mostly Professor Vin on Twitter. And, you know, frankly, there's a lot of political stuff on there, right? And so I don't feel like anybody needs to follow that. If you don't want to, don't worry about it. You probably won't agree with my politics. You don't need to. But you know, I have had students who say, oh, Canvas was down, or I needed to message you really quickly, and Twitter worked out, or Instagram worked, I messaged you. Please go for it. I don't use Instagram as much as I used to. I am on Twitter, and so if I, you know, catch your message or whatever, I'll definitely let you know. The only thing I can't do on Twitter and Instagram is talk about your grade. Happy to do that on Canvas, but because those are third-party platforms, I can't. I'm just concerned about privacy stuff, right? I wouldn't want to disclose your grade to a third party or something. So, all right. Excuse me. All right, let's start. Before we start in on this stuff here, now let's go for it. Commitment to viewpoint diversity. This is from the Heterodox Academy. I belong to the Heterodox Academy. It's a group of academics who are concerned about the lack of diversity of thought in higher education. Part of education is understanding when you're wrong, or when you might have been told something that isn't as well supported as it could have been. And that's just part of what happens. And the idea is that when you are talking to people in this class on the discussion board, and you guys are talking about Atlantis, or you're talking about Roswell, treat those folks with respect. I mean, you may not agree with what they're saying at all, but just don't make it personal. Make it about the subject, not the person. You know, bring light, not heat. Reasonable minds can differ on any number of things. I mean, opinion is absolutely... once you have people who are free, they're going to have different opinions. And that's just the cost of an open society. And instead of ridiculing, you know, opposing opinions and viewpoints, it's just important that we learn from them, because they are there to help us, you know, and help us understand where we went wrong. Student freedom of speech. You have freedom of speech, and I don't want you to feel like you're not entitled to your own opinion. You are, and part of this class is you developing your own opinion, not an opinion that you think that you want, I want you to have, something like that. When it comes to dropping the course, you guys do that stuff. I will not drop you from this course. So I only mention it because sometimes people email me and say, hey, can you drop me, or can you drop me without it? No, that's all through administration, admissions and records. Class participation. There's really one line that's important here. This class proceeds on a modular basis. Okay, what that means is, once we're done with that module, so the first one is January the 2nd to January the 9th. Once the 9th hits, that module is closed. It is not available anymore, and once midnight hits on January the 9th. So, January the 9th rolls around, you have the full day of January the 9th until the 10th. So once the 10th rolls around, boom, the module will close. So, the reason why I have to do it this way is because we cover a lot of information, 16 weeks in about 5 weeks. That's almost a month per week. That's a lot. And I can't allow people to just do it at their own pace, or they just will not finish. Do the assignments when they come due. Don't wait, or else I'm going to be forced to close the module. If something comes up, Professor Vince, something to come up, I know I'm not going to finish this in time, message me before the day that the thing is due. So message me before the end of Module 1 if you know you're not going to finish it in time. Just message me on Canvas, and I can totally work with you. We'll work with you once you have, before the deadline. After the deadline, it's a little bit tougher. Okay, Street Sweeper. It's passing. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it was super loud in here. Content disclaimer. Most important line is right here. Your grade does not depend upon what you believe. My goal here is not to tell you what to think, it's to tell you how to think. And so, my goal as an educator is to further you and help you find your voice. Whatever that is, it's not for you to try to adopt my voice. I don't think I have anything that's particularly novel or interesting to say in other areas, so I want you to focus on yourself, not so much on me. I don't want you to feel like you need to bite one way or another on an issue in order to do well. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff in this class. We're going to talk about psychics and paranormal stuff, and I have students who have told me the most heartfelt, intense stories you can imagine about seeing the ghost of their grandfather or hearing their grandfather's voice, right? And those people are entitled to their lives and their views on that stuff. And I've had students who've told me stories that are the opposite of that, and they've had similar impact on them, right? That because of this, they're convinced that there's no such thing as this, right? That is up to you entirely, and I'm not here to judge you. You may be absolutely convinced that your mom is psychic. I have not met your mother. I have no idea, right? Instead, I talk about what the standards of evidence would have to be for something like that to be considered to be true by a bunch of people, not so much whether or not your aunt or your uncle or your mom was psychic, right? Okay, next up, internet access. Gotta have it for this class. Use your current email through Canvas. That's just an assumption of the course. And I mention that because if I'm sending you something like, hey, your module never got turned in, or hey, your grade is late, or I sent an announcement to the class, I need to make sure that you're getting it. So the presumption is that you're getting all the class communications if you have your email and it's proper on Canvas. Okay, next up, academic integrity and plagiarism. Plagiarism has a fancy definition. It's right here. Using another person's ideas or expressions without acknowledging that person's work. I will say a couple of things about this. So plagiarism is kind of like taking someone else's work and not giving that person credit. It's one of the worst things you can do in academia because you're stealing. That's basically what it is. Now, as a student, I fully appreciate that it's hard to understand why it's such a big deal, right? And you don't need to know. I mean, apart from the fact that it's stealing, but you should know that it is a big deal. And many instructors will give you an F if you plagiarize something. So if you write a paper, boom, they'll give you an F in the course, right? and it can lead to a permanent disciplinary record. There's an easy way to get out of this. Don't plagiarize. I understand that you're going to be taking this course and you're going to feel like, oh, I can just cut and paste from this over here. He will never know. I'm writing my Roswell paper. I found this blog. I found this site about Roswell. He'll never know that this isn't. Trust me, I will. Think about it this way. I teach this course every semester, and I've read thousands of papers about Roswell and stuff like that, and Atlantis, the stuff you're going to be working on. And I will definitely have a feel for whether or not it's your work. And it's just so easy to put quotes around somebody else's work and say, hey, I got it from this person. That's fine. And if you're ever in doubt, do that, right? Don't try to copy someone else's work. It's a terrible, terrible mistake. So please don't do that. Student Success Centers. The following sections of the syllabus are really things that we have available on campus, both at the LAC campus and the Pacific Coast campus, that might help you. So I'm going to cover them briefly, but I'm not going to read the whole shebang. Student Success Centers, they're fantastic. They help you with reading and writing effectively. Look, people go to four-year universities and they pay private tutors to learn these skills. We have people, they're here on campus and they're here to teach you those skills for free. So I encourage you to go in and visit those success centers. Access Services, DSPNS. This is such a great service, and I hope that students are taking advantage of it. They help they offer a wide range of services that help students who qualify for it. That could be note taking. It could be another time. The good thing, more time on an exam. If you are DSP and S, please let me know. If you are not, I encourage you to visit and see if you are eligible for more information. One thing about note-taking for this course, the notes are taken. You'll have access to the notes that I use to compile the lectures, and so note-taking is taken care of, so yay. Next up, veterans and eligible family members. If you're a veteran, thank you for your service. I have a wonderful family because of you, and I really do appreciate it very much. The Veterans Affairs Office is located there on the LAC campus. I would call this number here, it's an E10, I believe. Contact them if you have any questions or concerns. And yes, I have had veterans who occasionally go on assignment in the middle of, right, they're in the reserves or something, and they go on assignment right in the middle, and we've worked it out. If that's you, please let me know ahead of time, we can find it. Career and Job Services Center. I mention this all the time, but it's very true. I recently had a friend who completed her resume review, and she paid someone over $1,000 to review that resume, and it was 3 pages long. Those kinds of services are available for you at the Career and Job Services Center. Take advantage of them. People pay a lot of money to have someone else look at their resume. People pay a lot of money to try and find a job. LBCC has those sources for you, so I encourage you to make the most of them. Assignments, we'll get to that in a minute, but the assignment schedule is a tentative one. We could change things around if people aren't getting something or I'm getting a lot of messages on something. I can slow down and recover stuff. I will never cut you guys short. I will only ever extend you. Okay, no makeups, so do your stuff before the module closes. Classroom decorum, we should be okay online. People typically are all right here, but we want to do follow the same kinds of rules of respect and kind of civil disagreement that we would have in a normal classroom setting. Academic freedom. This is super important. I'm going to read this out loud just so I get all of it right. Some of the discussions, essays, or topics will include the use of objectionable language and adult topics as long as it's pertinent to the learning process. You'll be exposed to language or ideas that are in conflict with your personal worldview. You're expected to maintain a mature and Courteous demeanor during class discussions, disrespectful behavior will not be tolerated. Okay, so I've had students who have grave, real theological objections to psychics or demons or ghosts. Absolutely, and I'm not here saying that any of this stuff is real or that it's fake. I'm not making any claims at all. But you're going to be exposed to stuff like this, and this is just the nature of education, right? You're being exposed to something so as to develop a mature response to it. Not that you accept it, right? I won't force you to accept anything in this class, but you will be exposed to things that you may not find agreeable or things that you just think are false. Like Professor Vitt, I just think this person has psychic powers. That's all there is to it. Good. I mean, that's absolutely within your discretion. So, okay, class attendance, again, this is almost 3 weeks every week, so do your stuff. Get on it and get it done quickly. That much being said, I'll be honest with you, this is a straightforward course. I try not to build any curves into it. I try not to build a bunch of fluff. It should be pretty straightforward. But if there's something that you think of or something that's wrong, let me know. Spelling, grammar, and punctuation always count. Make sure that you double check those things when you turn in a paper or a presentation. All right, class schedule. First thing that you got to know about the schedule, it can change. So don't rely on this only for the due date, right? We may open up logic early, right, before the 9th, or we may open up science early before the 9th. It just depends on how things go. I will never cut your time short. I will only ever extend it. So here's how the course kind of breaks down. First week, we do modules 1 and 2. That's what critical thinking is and why it is. Module 2 is sources. That's really where you get your information, or better yet, how something is said rather than what is said. There is a follow-up module for this, and that's going to be module 8 at the end of January for media. That's a new module I've constructed. I think it's pretty useful. The same with political reasoning. This is a new module. Those are my 2 new modules right there. Module 4 is going to include science. We're going to talk about the method of science and why it's important and how it's different from other kinds of knowledge or other kinds of methods. Then, about midway in January, we'll start our class discussion and working on the Roswell paper. After that, we'll talk about oddities of nature and numbers, perceptual error and trickery, and then there's two new modules I discussed, and then lastly, second to last, we'll do your final presentation, and then module 9, memory and advertising. So it's a full month, it's a full 6 weeks, but it is pretty straightforward. So the one thing I want you guys to all remember, if you have any concerns or any questions at all, message me in the inbox. I'm grateful to hear from you guys. And if you're still listening, I'll tell you a little bit about me. And if you're not, you won't matter anyway. I am absolutely always willing to hear from you guys because before I was a philosophy professor, I was an attorney. And I wanted to be an attorney, and I was able to do that. But being an attorney was different from what I think I really ultimately wanted out of life. And my wife had married an attorney, and then she got a professor. I married the right person, and my family supported me as I transitioned from one kind of work to another. I mention that because every single time I log into my email, right, or my messages from Canvas, every time I try to record a lecture or something for you guys, I will give it my all. I will do my absolute best. I will never just mail it in. That's because I've had to work jobs that are not fantastic and that I didn't like. And to be able to do this with you guys is actually a great treat. I could take this section off. I could take this break off, but I don't want to. I want to teach this class online. I get to do exactly what I want to do with my life. And so for you guys, I want you the same thing for you guys. And as a result, I'll be as warm and as inviting as I possibly can as we go through this material and through this process. And if you ever have a question or a concern or something isn't right or I posted something wrong, please don't hesitate to let me know. I will totally work with you. We will figure it out together. So when I say message me, I really mean it. I get to do what I want to do. And yeah, even if it means, by the way, this video was done in the garage, but I do videos in the kitchen and in the front room and in the bedroom and like all over the place. It's just where can I get access at the time. My children will also appear in these videos. They just do. You know, kids show up and they talk to you, they have questions and whatever. I try to keep it to a minimum, but you will see my kids. Also, all of these videos are not fresh, meaning some of these videos are semesters old. So like in many of them, I don't even think I have a beard. I redo videos every other semester, and I do them in blocks of 2. So you just may not have a bearded Professor Vip for some of your videos. For some of them, you will. Sorry about that. It is what it is. So if you guys have any questions or concerns, please message me. This is the end of the syllabus video. I tried to cover everything in as timely a manner as possible. But of course, if I left something out, please let me know, and I would love to hear from you. Okay, you guys, this is going to be a fantastic course, and thank you for watching the syllabus video.